All right, we are back, part 2 with Brian, and I mentioned the first part. My father now passed away, lost his leg after a botched vein replacement, and so I had basically lost blood flow to his leg. I think it's a pretty painful ordeal. He had to get it amputated, but shortly following that. Once he was in good humor, there were some jokes that were made, and I'm assuming you've heard some too.
Yes, that's right. Often
any of your favorites?
One Foot in the Grave is a good one. I have a T-shirt that says "Amputee, some assembly required." That's my favorite T-shirt that I've got. But yeah, I hear all kinds of things like that.
After this, he was looking for a house because he got his leg amputated. It was It was a crazy year. Leg amputated like in the spring. My mom passed away in July, so it was a tough time for him. He sold the house, but then he wasn't really looking for a house. And we're like, if you don't get out, if you don't look,
you don't find.
The other people are going to have a leg up on you in the competition. Stuff like that. I assume he liked it. He laughed. So, any other ones that have been tossed around?
I'm sure there is, because nobody hesitates to drop one of those. So yeah, I've heard plenty.
Yeah.
I've also got a shirt that talks about they said it'd be an arm and a leg, but I talked them down, and things like that.
Yeah, we should put so we do have some. I'm not wearing it. I should have. We do have some merch.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
The Take Two.
Take Two merch. Yeah. We should put one on there, especially for you.
Take one. Enough. Yeah.
Take one. Don't take two, just take one.
Take two.
I've got my foot caught in my mic. All right. So with that, we will head into part 2, where we'll just hear some of your reflections on it. Maybe things God has taught you through this. So
we're going to take it to the next level.
From the hearts of the Low Country in South Carolina,
it's the Take Two podcast, where we take theology to the next level. All right, so traumatic injury, life-changing injury, in many ways.
That's right.
Physical. I'm assuming.
My capacity is diminished for work and for activity. I didn't run much before, to be honest. Age had taken care of that, but I don't even think about it now.
Yeah. Were there ever times? I'm assuming the answer is no, but it's okay if the answer is yes. But I hear some people talk about this, and they talk about doubting God throughout of it. But I'm assuming that were there ever doubts like that, or it's hard to know unless you go through it.
For me, no. I have some doubts about something, but it's not that. What happened, the time that I sat there wondering if I would die, when I woke up alive, I was happy. And I still am. Because I didn't have to survive that. I didn't know if I was going to. And better men than me have died in accidents, and He spared my life. God did. There's several things, many things could have gone differently, and I wouldn't have made it. Me not having a belt, my son not being able to carry me down or not being able to get the ladder undone, me passing out, and any number of other things. So I've remained happy to be alive. Now, I've had a lot of pain. I've had some emotional breakdowns, some discouragement regarding my healing and how long it took, and wondering if I'd ever be able to sleep or ever be able to not be taking pain meds. But what has remained is that God let me live, and I wanted to live. So I'm happy about that. And I wouldn't take it back. That's probably not completely true, but what I mean to say by that is I don't regret what has happened.
Well, that was one of my questions because Johnny Erickson Tata, fairly well known, but if you don't know, had this life-altering accident. She
A lot worse than what happened to me.
yeah, dove into a shallow pool, broke her neck, was paralyzed, and then later in life had cancer she was fighting. And 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, someone was interviewing her, and she said, I wouldn't take it back because God used it so many ways. And so that was one of my questions. Like, have you gotten to the point where you because that's somewhat tough to say.
It's something that people might not believe, but it's the truth, because I really thought that I might die. I thought I was going to die, and I'm still happy to be alive. And so some things that have happened, and is that I've realized that my life belongs to God, because it could have been ended a year ago.
And some people are like, didn't you always know your life belonged to God? But
Exactly.
But it's like, but
not
it's
like
an
this.
experiential way that you
Yes.
can't explain.
Now, everybody, and that's what I tell people. I said, and so does yours.
Yeah.
And it's good to know it without this happening.
Right.
And I did know it, but now I really know it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to be here. And so, what it has taught me is the meaning of Ecclesiastes 7:2, which says, it's better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of feasting, because that is the end of every man, and the wise, or something like that, take it to heart. And when you read that proverb-type wisdom statement, you're like, nah, you don't believe that. And it is a proverb. It's not like you should be happy at a funeral and not care about weddings. But the truth of the matter is, going to the house of mourning, it shows you it's better for your soul long term if you come to recognize that box is where I'm going to end up. And it is for me and you and everyone else. And for me personally, I know it in such a more clear way that I could have been in that box for a year now, and there wouldn't have been nothing unusual about that happening. It would have been sad. It would have been sad for my children and all of that, but that's what happens when you lose all that blood and you're out in the middle of nowhere. But the wise recognizes that they're going to end up in that box dead, and that means you need to be ready for that. And it doesn't just mean for unbelievers. It's not just me talking to unbelievers and saying, you better get ready for death because it's coming. It's believers. To ask yourself, since you believe that God the Son took on flesh and came down to this earth and endured betrayal and disrespect and torture and death for you, are you ready to look him in the eyes when you can see the scars in his hands? And are you ready for that? Because you know what he did for you, and what have you done with your life? And it's important for believers to know that day is coming, and are you going to be ashamed when you look at Jesus? And so that's what it's taught me, and I hope to always know that my remaining time truly belongs to him, and I ought to do whatever it is that he wants for me to do. Now, you ask about doubts. Before the accident, when my church was without a pastor, and and a couple other guys was filling in for almost a year preaching. I developed a strong desire to preach and possibly pastor a church. But, I'm a farmer, and I have some deficiencies. I have some deficiencies in dealing with people and leadership things. I just didn't know if that was the right thing for me. So I ended up deciding, well, I preach a little bit. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to do, what I've been doing. And I had pretty well settled on that. And then the Lord, well, I don't want to say the Lord took my leg. Then this happened to me.
Well, for all of us who are pretty high on his sovereignty, we're fine with that.
Well,
he allowed it to be taken. Well,
this
there we
happened. And now everything's wide open.
Yeah.
Can I even farm if I want to?
Yeah.
And I am working now. I've gotten a lot better. But I certainly will never be able to do all the things that I did before. And the desire came back. So I got to thinking that God was going to show me with absolutely no question that that's what I was supposed to do. And it hasn't been that clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll think something, and well, nothing happens. And so well, what is he doing? Did he ever say? Was he speaking to me or not? What am I supposed to do with my life?
Yeah.
I say that I'm ready to do what he wants, but what's he want me to do? So I really have some ups and downs.
Wait on him,
with that.
perhaps.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the tough ones. So I'll just say, I know you had sin in your life because you're a sinner.
Yeah.
And I have sin in my life. And I think if I went through this, whatever level of sin we have in our life, it's too much, right? Right. I know you, and I've known you, so I know that you have been on a path of sanctification since we were young, and hopefully I've been on that same path. Would you say that this accident has sharpened that, or do you think about that kind of stuff, or?
I think that it has made me accept that I belong to him and that I ought to do whatever it is that he wants me to do. Now, it hasn't taken away the specific struggles that I have had over the years, and I still fight those things, the different temptations that are common to me, maybe common to others, but we all have things that we struggle with, and it hasn't taken that away, but I just don't have any doubt that I ought to be living for him.
Yeah.
And I hope that I'm ready to do so.
Yeah. Anything that, any other questions or struggles you had during the time, or opportunities that have come from this that you want to talk about?
I certainly have some opportunities in that I stand out and people are interested. And so when I talk about the Lord, or I talk about what has happened to me, and people will listen, And since then, and these are not necessarily new. Well, I guess they are. I've given myself more to being available to preach or speak to people. I've started preaching at a nursing home every third Sunday in the afternoon, and I've really
So it's not third Sunday singing.
No,
it's
well,
third
it
Sunday
is
preaching.
actually.
Oh, it
I
is?
sing too. In fact, they like the singing a whole lot more than they like the preaching, and I don't mean my singing. I just mean they love. So these are old folks. In fact, I've lost 3 in the past 6 weeks or so, and a couple of my favorite ones. Those people are stuck there. I've heard my dad's preacher say, because he also visits this place regularly, that these are folks under a death sentence. They are at the end of their life and they know it, and they want to sing about heaven, and they want to gather and sing and hear. They want to hear the word. They like to sing in the best, but they want to hear the word. And I never do that. I might feel tired or not looking forward to it when I go, but every time you feel like this was a good thing to do. This is a service to these people. They want to have church and they can't because they're stuck here. So if we can provide that for them, then.
And this is just a nursing home.
Yeah.
So it's only the residents who want to attend?
It's only the ones that want to come. That's right. And now we do a little bit of visiting, but I've been limited in that. One time I went to visit and I walked around for an hour and I was down for a week. Yeah. I wasn't down where I couldn't walk, but I was really struggling for a week after that. So I've been limited in the visiting I could do other than the preaching. But they like that too. That when you come up there, they might not even know who you are. They just want somebody to talk to. So that's something that I love being able to do. I've been preaching occasionally at a substance abuse rehab nearby, and I've started to, and now I'm going to be doing that once a week. I've filled in at several churches. What has happened is I've told my church that I have this desire, possibly even to not just to preach what I've been doing, but possibly even to pastor a church. and of course they've all been very supportive of that, and I've got my name out there, and so I filled in a few places and things like that. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find out if that's if I'm called to do that. I feel I have the desire, and I think that means something. Right. I may or may not have the gift, it depends on who you ask, I'm sure. But what I feel like, or what I'm doing, is waiting to see if the people of God confirm that calling on me or not. And they may not. They really may not. But what I do feel like is, what I feel certain about is that I'm called to preach the gospel. Now, that doesn't mean you're called to be a pastor of a church. Sure. So I'm going to do that when I have the opportunity, and that's what I'm doing. And if it extends beyond that, then I'm willing to do it.
There's a guy I listen to that gets mentioned on this podcast every now and then called Greg Koppel. He has his own podcast, but he has this phrase. He talks about being blooming where you're planted, and it sounds like that's what you're aiming to do, to take what your opportunities that you have and make the most of them, right. And then it's on God really to provide other opportunities as he sees fit. I'm
trying to start a community Bible study in my town, which I did for about a year before my accident, and I just this past week had my first meeting again, and I'm just looking to see what happens, and I don't know if anything happens. I had a few come, and I'm willing to do what he shows me to do. But it's pretty, the doubts and the questioning is when you
don't know.
He won't just write it down and send it to you in the paper.
Yeah.
And I'm a timid person. I'll tell you something else I've learned. Because in order to do a community Bible study, that means you have to go out there and ask people to come to it in person, or you should. Obviously, Facebook is something, but it ain't much. You need to look somebody in the eye and make them think you want to minister to them. And that's hard for me because I'm something of a coward, honestly. I've never been a real people person, and I've been afraid to go up to people and talk to them and stuff like that. I'm the kind that can eat in a restaurant by myself or whatever, But here's a verse I'll tell you about. I don't know if you've ever thought about it. in Revelation at the end, it talks about who's fixing to get thrown in the lake of fire, and it says, and the cowardly, and the unbelieving, and this and that, the liar, and all liars, even from years ago, that's still the cowardly. I don't understand that, but I think I've come to understand it a little, and it really is a conviction to me. If you believe that
the verses before that say something about to those who overcome this, but to the cowardly. So I take it to be the people who refuse to overcome. So and so you have both spiritual and physical things that you are seeking to overcome.
That's right.
Yeah.
And one of them is timidity in a crowd or among people, or to go and talk to someone about something important, especially. And the thing is, so I've wondered, what is it about cowardice that would offend God so much? Mm-hmm. And for the believer, you say that the sovereign of the universe, who created all things, will never leave you or forsake you, and has indwelt you with his Holy Spirit to do the work of ministry, and that's for everyone. And when I said earlier I called to preach the gospel, there's a real sense in which every believer is called. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's different ways people do it, but if you've got that God empowering you, it's offensive to say you're afraid to talk to somebody or afraid to do what you think he's. You've got no business being afraid to do what he is asking or directing you to do. And so I'm trying to overcome that a little, and I'm working on it.
How has this accident, has it had ripple effects into your and Christy's relationship, or Christy's outlook on life, or your kids? I'm assuming that it's touched your whole nuclear family in some way.
Here's something else that I've said a couple of times lately. And this is another reason why I don't regret what has happened. It's better to grow closer to your spouse on one leg than to drift apart on two. And we have had struggles that I'm not interested in talking about necessarily, but we're stronger now. The same goes with your children. There's three things that are better on one leg than the opposite on two, and it's to grow close to your spouse rather than drift away, to grow close and strong, bonded with your children rather than to be at odds, and to know that your life belongs to God and that you ought to live for him, than to be what so many of us are, is just living for ourselves, essentially. I mean, we go to church and we might even do this or that thing, but so many of us are working for money, and we're doing the things we want to do. We don't have God as the first priority in our lives, and so it's.
So you
better.
wouldn't say that people shouldn't work for money, but it shouldn't be what they wrap their whole lives around.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. Yeah. And there was something. Well, he gave himself for us. He calls us to give ourselves to him, to take up our cross and follow him. And he tells us not to seek first the things that everyone else is seeking, but that to seek first the kingdom of God. And it's good to know that, even if you have to learn it on one leg. So that's what I've learned, I think.
Anything else? Anything else you want to share? Any I know we talked about preaching, but any future plans?
Well, no, I don't have. I've put my name out to a couple of churches that are looking and things like that, but I have no experience. I'm a 50-year-old farmer that's, I was on a pulpit committee, and I wasn't interested in some guy like that, So so what I tell those churches is just, I'm looking for what I'm supposed to do. I know that I'm willing to do it, and I know that I have a desire to do it, but I'm waiting on God through his people to confirm whether or not that's what he wants for me or not. And he may not, because I have some deficiencies I could list for you. Maybe that's not what I'm supposed to do. But I know he wants me to witness for him, and I know that I'm able to speak, to speak or teach a class or whatever. So I'm going to do whatever he opens up for me to do, I guess.
All right. Any other closing thoughts?
I can't remember what I'm supposed to say. That's the second time in a row.
No, I wasn't necessarily trying to close. I just wanted to, anything else that you had to say in general?
Oh, well, I don't think so.
Okay.
No questions.
No
more questions.
All right.
That's our take.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for listening to Take Two. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube for those who want to watch our videocast.